is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime in association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
The very hot and extremely aggressive M3 Sedan and M4 Coupe from BMW. Thomas Andersson from Volvo explains the India strategy and what's happening with Volvo globally exclusively to CNB. And there are two limited editions from Mercedes-Benz on the A and B class. We've got them for you first.
Bem-vindo and welcome to Portugal. Welcome to a brand new episode of CNB. I'm Siddharth Vinayak Partnkar. So the M3 and now the M4 in many ways signifies a really big deal for the BMW group. Why is that? It's that one production car that gives the group its bragging rights. So it's important. So has the company got it right with the new generation?
Yes, I've been waiting to drive these two cars. Waiting with bated breath. And why not? The BMW M3 has for long carried the tag of being one of the world's most capable, fun and dynamic road cars. All while looking reasonably tame in its sedan or coupe avatar.
Quick history lesson. Back in 1990, the E30 was the first M3 and that's when the whole legend, let's say, started. 238 horses, that car impressed people, but it was the next generation which came out in 1992, the E36. That really defined what this whole M3 legacy has been all about ever since then. Straight 6 engine, 320 horses. To many people, this was quite literally the ultimate driving machine. Now, turn of the century and the E46 again took popularity levels for the M3 even higher. 343 horses, but for me, I guess, given my age, the car I've spent the most time driving, the most miles that I've clocked, has to be on the E92. 420 horses, V8. It didn't seem to get better than this. So now the question is, and this is where the history lesson ends, does the new car manage to top just the kind of cult and the kind of overall performance credentials that this one has achieved?
That's a tough act to follow, and so it was crucial to really get under the skin of the new generation, what with the badging now splitting into the M3 and the M4.
So we brought both these cars to the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve. The circuit is 4.69 kilometers long. We're not going to be doing the entire loop, but we've got enough opportunity to see if the promise on the M3 and M4 really does exist. Now remember, these cars are supposed to come alive on the track, so do they? Let's head inside to find out.
The track at Portimao is brilliant. Challenging yet thrilling. Undulating and sharp. And it's the perfect test bed for these twins. I had our CNB Jura and Zignition's Adil Jaldaru Khanawala with us, and so we are taking turns on both the cars. The 3-litre V6 engine has two equal-sized turbos that basically service 3 cylinders each. The units feature electronic wastegates, for more accurate and faster boost control.
So was it a wise move from BMW to go from naturally aspirated V8 to twin-power turbo V6 inline? Well, you know what? The purists may say otherwise, but after having driven the car, I think the simple answer is yes. What they've done is that they've been smart. They've been simple yet very crucial elements that have been used in this engine to make sure that it's every bit the M3 experience that you're looking for. Now, you've already heard about the two things in terms of what happens with that turbo, but the crucial part, I think, is just where that power delivery comes in. Now, on the outgoing car, you had that really just coming in at one point, the peak power delivery at one point on that RPM scale. Here, the difference is that from about 4,500 RPM all the way to about 7,000 RPM, you carry on hitting that peak optimum power of 431 horses. Now that is absolute bliss, because no matter where you are on that entire huge power band, you continue to get the optimum performance, you continue to get that maximum power, which makes driving so much fun.
The M3 can go from 0 to 100 km per hour in 4.1 seconds. And the generous 550 Nm of torque is very apparent in this car. Torque is up a massive 40% compared to the last M3's V8 engine. BMW engineers told me that they had to opt for the 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox because the 8-speed ZF that goes into some of their other cars couldn't handle the torque.
The dual-clutch gearbox is responsive on the track for sure, but I have to say that in Sport Plus mode, which is what I'm doing right now on the track, it does have a little bit of a, not a delay, but there's almost like a little pause when you're actually using the paddle shifters to switch gears and not staying in auto or drive mode. And to me, that's a little bit of a pain, because on a manual gearbox, I know I would have a little bit more control. So when you're coming in fast out of a corner, you really want to be able to quickly slam it down and take off. That little hesitation kind of costs you. Maybe on the open road, it won't be such an issue though.
This is especially true if you change the gearbox character by fiddling with this button at the base of the gear stick. This allows you to change the response time, gear ratios, and generally go from a comfort-oriented to a sportier feel. The active M differential optimizes traction and driving stability, again to suit the driving conditions. On this fast and really undulating track, it's proving very useful to me. With our track drive done, Adil and I are now managing to get quite a few miles in the two cars as we zip across the lovely Algarve countryside.
Alright, so it's day 2, and as you can see that we've got the two cars with us again. Adil's in the other car today because yesterday I spent primarily most of my time driving the M3 in that gorgeous Yas Marina blue. It's the Austin yellow with me today. That's the M4, and the two of us are going to stick together. Lots of countryside driving yet again through some gorgeous routes. Let's get on with it.
Oh, as we begin the drive the next day, I can already tell you, I'm a fan of the new M3 and M4. They're easily some of the best, if not the best work from the M division, and define what the BMW brand stands for and is in a very precise way. We are driving northeast now towards the Mertola municipality, close to the Spanish border.
Now there's 3 settings to pretty much everything in the car. You know how Audi has Drive Select, where you can pretty much adjust all the different responses of the car. Well, here you have separate buttons that lets you do that. The steering can go from Comfort to Sport Plus. The same is true of the throttle. The same is true of the gear shifts as well. You can adjust all 3 manually, and you can get into the different modes and different configurations in terms of what works for you. It has been fun. I have to say that the Sport Plus mode is just as dynamic as you expect it should be on a car like this, and that's good, that's satisfying. On the gear changes, you've already heard what I had to say, that when you put it into the third mode, the gears just kind of slam in too suddenly, and when it's in the first mode, there's almost a little sluggishness to it. But otherwise, it's been an absolute hoot.
There's very little to differ the two cars, but having spent some time now driving the M4 on these beautiful open roads, I can tell you that it does drive a tad better. Only just, though.
So purists would say that this doesn't sound like an M3 or an M4 for that matter, because it's not naturally aspirated, it's not a V8, but there has been some emphasis laid to how the car sounds. It has a nice deep, rumbly sort of a engine note, and when you put it into Sport Plus mode in terms of the throttle response setting, well then things sort of start singing very differently, because the butterfly valves open up and you get this really nice, meaty, growly sort of a throttle response, which frankly is a lot of fun to drive with. So I guess I'm not one of the purists.
The countryside just keeps getting more and more gorgeous, by the way, as we keep lapping up the kilometers.
Handling's supposed to be a hallmark on a car like this, and you know what, it is. It just really does the job, and it's really helped in a very big way by a very precise steering. It's been such a pleasure to drive the car with this steering, because in all three settings on that steering control, you get this great precision. You just know exactly where the car is going to go. You get a sense of a good feedback from the road, and you know what, they haven't softened it. All those fears that BMW is going to go really soft on the new M3 or the M4, it hasn't happened. Nice and stiff. It gives you this great sense of driving control.
And yes, I have not forgotten to show you the specs. It's a nice little recap that summarizes just why I'm having so much fun with these cars, isn't it? The numbers do justice to the car's credentials. The new generation F80 is 80 kgs lighter than its predecessor. Just that V6 engine is 15 kgs lighter than the V8 was. The car uses carbon fiber in the front end strut brace and in the drive shaft. This reduces weight and yet offers more rigidity. On the inside, the car screams sportiness. Now, I won't bore you with the details, but expect pretty much every piece of equipment and creature comfort that there is at this end of the market. I still love the little detail of the stitching done in M colors and the quality of leather used everywhere. The town of Mertola is the seat of the municipality. It's built on a huge hill on the banks of the Guadiana River and dates its origins back to the Phoenician and Roman times before being controlled by the Moors for over 500 years.
The carbon fiber roof's sort of a signature for the M3 and now the M4 as well. There is one interesting point though. The engineering team was very clear at BMW that it wanted identical figures on the M3 and M4 when it comes to performance. Now, it's not easy to always achieve that. Now, remember, this is just a regular sedan body style. So, you've got a boot. There's a bit of a stuck-on spoiler lip here. But to try and make sure you get exactly the same performance figures on the Coupe, which has a very different sloping roofline and a stubbier rear end, how do you do it? Well, intelligence is what kicks in, because what they've done is they've played with the metal here. The surface of the metal is very different to what you see on the sedan's boot, and there's a bit of a duckbill stretched out kind of a spoiler treatment integrated into the metal. That helps you create the same sort of aerodynamics as you get on the sedan, and so both the figures end up being identical. It's pretty smart, isn't it?
Smart indeed, and very thoughtfully designed, built and engineered. That in a nutshell sums up the new M3 and M4 from BMW. The cars are fantastic benchmarks, will make the competition scurry for cover and will delight their buyers. Will India get the Coupe? Well, I expect the M3 first later this year, but I do think the M4 will be offered, though in limited numbers.
It's a 13th century castle that sits on top of the hill here at Mertola. Now it has an interesting architectural style that's got Islamic sort of an influence, because this region used to be ruled by an Islamic ruler back then. Then of course everything changed to Christianity later on, but you see a lot of that influence in some of the buildings and some of the houses in this region. Quite fascinating. Time for us to slip into a short break here on CNB. Please react to both these little monsters. Got to hear your reactions to them. Stay with us, there's plenty coming up. Welcome back to CNB. I've been having some fun with the M3 and the M4, still driving the M4. Good amount of driving really this time around, and so I'm happy that I'm getting to spend a lot of time with the car. You already know everything about it, so let's move on now and talk about more that we have for you on the program today.
So while Siddharth is having all the fun with the M's, I have an A and a B which is keeping me company, but is a little more sedate and probably not as fun as the M's. I'm talking about the limited edition A-Class, which I'm currently driving, and in a short while I will be driving the limited edition B-Class, and Mercedes-Benz really calls this the Edition 1 models, largely to celebrate the success of both these models and largely of the A-Class really. Now interestingly, some of the features available on the limited edition models will get carried over to the regular model as well.
Both these cars, especially the A-Class, don't have to try too hard to catch your eye anyway, so there was no need to really tinker with the styling. Both cars get the decals with the Edition 1 lettering on the side, high gloss black exterior mirrors, and to complement that, a black panoramic roof. The B-Class gets new 16-inch alloys which will get carried over to the standard model as well.
Now the cabin of the A-Class didn't lack any oomph in the first place, but now the comfort factor has just gone up a bit in the limited edition model. So you have features like the reverse camera, you have the electrically adjustable front passenger seat, also the rear armrest, and some of the features get carried over to the regular model as well. But one feature that doesn't get carried over to the regular model, which for me is really the icing on the cake, is this, the panoramic sunroof. Just check this out. And that just gives a lot more appeal to this hatch.
The F1-inspired sporty seats in the A-Class and the cockpit-like dashboard continue to look just as sporty as before. Both cars also get the Edition 1 badge near the sunroof controls. The reverse camera and the rear seat armrest will become regular features on both models. The limited edition of the B-Class also gets a new rear seat entertainment system with separate controls. Based on customer feedback, Mercedes-Benz has reworked the suspension setup on both cars. The idea was to offer higher ground clearance to suit bad Indian roads while retaining the sporty appeal. Mercedes-Benz is offering the limited edition models only on the diesel variants of the A and B class, i.e. the A180 CDI and the B180 CDI. Sadly, there are no mechanical changes under the hood, and so the cars drive pretty much the same. The launch of the limited edition models is expected in a few weeks, and the price is expected to go up by between 1 to 2 lakh rupees for the limited editions. The company plans to sell 100 units of each model, and like we said already, some of the features will be retained in the regular models as well.
All this excitement that you've created around the new images of the XC90, what's been the market feedback so far that you've got? Are people excited about this across the world?
I think there is actually a huge pent-up demand for this vehicle, and you know, we decided quite early to go for 3 different concept cars, and so we've launched 3 different concept cars, paving the way for the launch of the XC90. So a concept coupe, you know, a concept SUV, and a concept estate. And I think with that we've been able to, you know, really earmark that these are the things that, you know, you will see in a Volvo going forward, and we can see that from the huge, you know, press interest and from the general public that we're on the right track.
So when does the car come to India?
Well, that's hopefully sooner rather than later, huh? No, it's like this. We're launching the car globally, unveiling the car in August in Stockholm,
Yep.
and which means that it will go into deliveries in the near markets from a European perspective at the end of the first quarter.
Let's just take a step back and look at your strategy so far in India.
Yes.
Are you pretty much happy with the progress you've made?
We're very happy with the recent years' development. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, of course, we haven't been active in the Indian market as long as some of our competitors. We're focusing on now is really giving, a strong signal to the market that we take this market very seriously. We're setting up service network, at the very, very best quality levels. Of course, sales, showrooms around the country, setting up the infrastructure to be able to serve the customers here in the very best way.
So is there really a market for coupes in India? Well, it's not like manufacturers haven't offered them before, so we do have a few of them running around on our roads. But it's likely that the M3 sedan will drive into the Indian market before the M4 does. However, when it does come in, I hope there are takers for it, and I hope BMW offers this wonderful color as well. Alright, react to what you've seen on the program today, please folks. Anything you want to see on the program, you can get in touch with me on Facebook, Twitter and NDTV Social. Please post your questions for me on the NDTV app. That's the second screen function that you have to go and tap into. I will see you next week. Please wear your seatbelts, please wear your helmets, and remember, lots coming up on NDTV Prime every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. That's your daily dose of auto on Auto Prime. See you.